Let me do a live study if I can get this thing to work efficiently. Live study, because I glanced at this the other day. So Lance mentioned in his interview, I brought up Ed Oliver. These are the guys that we said, look, with all of this skill that we can see, this talents that we could see on tape, why are the production numbers not better? Oliver is a guy we said should have rushed the passer better in the American Conference, right? He should have.
Yes.
And we've said this, and then Lance said, well, he's playing zero tech. That's the nose tackle straight up on the center. Easy double team opportunities. So again, it's easy for us to look through our system and say, okay, let's
check it out.
Let's filter those out. And this actually does point to, yes, there's some truth to that. His pass rush grade took a big hit when he had to play straight up nose, and he was much better when he was more of a traditional defensive tackle. So now we can sit back and say, okay, have we been too harsh on him? Do we have to adjust for that a little bit? Now, Oliver was already in the first round mix for us anyway, but it is easy to move. The question now, top 10 versus top 20 is a fair one as we deconstruct his pass rush grade.
Since you're juggling all this information live, can you do the flip side of that equation and say, what is his grade when you take away those nose tackle plays?
That's what I did both.
Where did that land him?
I think they both were pretty good. I have to redo this. I did want to do this on the board for YouTube.
Because the interesting thing about Oliver is, sure, rushing from nose tackle is not exactly the easiest place to rush from. There's a reason that 3 technique was created essentially as a defensive alignment. It's because those guys are designed to get one-on-one against a guard in a little bit of space.
Right.
The nose tackle is the guy that's going to have some problems because he's got an easy double team opportunity. There's a center right over him, plus a guard can come in to double team him. But that's where a guy like Trey Flowers was killing people in the NFL. The Patriots would move him inside, line him up at true nose tackle, and his speed as an edge rusher would be able to knife into one of those A-gaps and completely destroy those interior players. We've seen Ed Oliver has that freaky level of quickness and, maneuverability. I would still expect him to be able to rush the passer well, even from a nose tackle alignment.
See if we can get it to load. But he had a solid. Here's the thing: he had a solid pass rush grade this year anyway, because he had a lot of quick wins that didn't turn into pressures. He didn't have a ton of pressures, but that was part of it too. He'd have a quick win, maybe a guard picks him up because of the double team. It wasn't necessarily translating to actual pressures. So
less than half the total pressures of Quinnen Williams on, significantly fewer pass rush snaps, but still.
So as a straight nose tackle in the draft class, number 13 as a pass rusher.
Okay.
Which isn't, and it's right by Christian Wilkins. It's right actually above Jeffrey Simmons, who we like better. And the samples are small on a lot of this stuff. Like Quinnen Williams is number 5. Dexter Lawrence is number 1. But Ed Oliver has 182 snaps there. That's the most in the draft class by far.
So what happens when we weed those out?
So now,
the flip side.
If I go ahead and undo, this is just live PFF ultimating.
This is magic right here.
It is. This is what this podcast, this is great radio.
It's a shame nobody can see it.
Well, that's why I'm going to do a YouTube video.
Yeah. For those people, it'd be
exactly
great. For the people stuck listening to us right now, it's perhaps
this is
lacking.
Good podcasting. Because we're explaining our process, Sam.
It's perhaps
we're also buying time
a little
right
bit of
now.
Magic.
But
yeah,
we're showing the process as best we can.
Uh-huh.
Let this thing load. It's a lot of positions.
Yeah. We'll
to
work
load.
Through it.
But look, I think this is important. We posted a video last week of Mike Renner and I in the boardroom, so to speak, in the draft room, going through, putting together our top 10. We're going to have more of those coming out. We got a lot of good feedback on those because we are trying to explain our process as much as possible,
Yeah, I mean, so Ed Oliver was another one of the combine winners, if you like, purely because he showed up and weighed 280 plus, 287 pounds.
Just by showing up.
Heavier than Aaron Donald.
It is.
Whereas people thought that he would be another 5-10 pounds under Aaron Donald. People were talking 270-something and asking him to run linebacker drills.
Right.
Shows up at 287. That puts him in Aaron Donald, Geno Atkins range. Suddenly you're talking about prototypical 2019 NFL 3 technique again.
I got some numbers for you.
Yes.
So that was a big win. And now that we dive into this further, he's number 3.
Ooh.
Non-nose tackle pass rushes. Here's the number. This is also a 3-year sample, by the way. What did I say? At 190 or so?
180, I think you said.
187, 180, whatever. Nose tackle snaps. Only 165 non-nose tackle pass rushes. This also has the blitz and stunt filter off. Okay, so I'm trying to get those pure pass rush situations. Now he's number 3. in the class with Quinnen Williams, number 1. He's number 1 at everything.
Right.
Armon Watts from Arkansas, only 78 attempts here. And then Ed Oliver. Ed is ahead of Christian Wilkins, Jerry Tillery, Draymond Jones, and Jeffrey Simmons. Those are all guys that we've slapped a pure first-round grade on.
Right, now we're talking.
So now, live on the podcast, we're deconstructing Ed Oliver's evaluation, and I'm ready to move him up the horizontal board a little bit.
Shooting him up the draft board.
Right, just by studying him a little bit using our database. So I think that's fair. So this is how we use the PFF grade. This is why when the draft guide comes out this week as part of PFF Edge and Elite, you guys need it because you need all this information. And there's all these different data points in there where you can't go through our whole database like I'm doing right now, but you guys can deconstruct, he won to the outside, he won with bull rushes. You can get more information about a player.
And this is, by the way, why our grading is used and is way more important to NFL teams than detractors like to acknowledge. You know, people say, well, the PFF grade isn't the be-all and end-all. And it's true. The overall number is not just something to take and roll with and have no other context to. But what the grading does allow you to do is to start doing things like this, where you say, okay, in this situation, with these circumstances applied, what does the grade look like?
Right.
And that way you can start to pull out things like, well, okay, Ed Oliver didn't have as much pass rush production as you would expect, but if you start pulling out these things, actually suddenly it jumps up and it looks way better. So you don't just look at his overall grade and say, well, really elite run defender, not so great as a pass rusher, even though it looks like he should be, forget it. You can actually tease that out further using the grading. And that's why NFL teams, the grading is still valuable to them, even if you can't see the obvious connection because you're just looking at overall number versus a player and saying, well, that doesn't add up.
And I will say, the feedback we get a ton of feedback every year at the Combine. There's still different levels of usage, but we get more and more feedback about how teams are using the grades, and the teams that are using it properly, you can tell when they're using it properly. Not to pick on Rashawn Gary again, but the other part about this situation is, we've heard reports about Ed Oliver I'm not picking on the Houston coaching staff, but there wasn't a lot of change there. There wasn't a lot of keeping it fresh for him on a day-to-day basis. That's part of the reason why there may not have been as much development as expected. Rashawn Gary's up at Michigan again with this pretty good, output of defensive linemen, at least from a college production standpoint. So that's the other thing. Is Ed Oliver going to have NFL coaching and take to it even more? There's something there. So we're willing to dig into these evaluations. Ed Oliver and Christian Wilkins, they're back-to-back on this list here. Both came into the season, I think, with less than stellar PFF pass rush grades, very good run defense grades. And we said, look, if you could rush the passer a little bit better, then you guys are top 15, top 20 prospects. And when given the opportunity, they've both stepped up and shown that they can do it. And I think that helps their evaluation. And that's where we are.